completing our homework. You can only code so many hours. I'm trying to increase my coding hours. This guy is posting a video. It says Dragon Ball's racial problem, and how black fans reclaim it anyway. And he said, I'll roll back just a little bit.
Constellation cannot understand visually often treated non-Western spiritual systems, useful, exotic, powerful, and but not authoritative. Then comes the Super Saiyan, the most uncomfortable part of the analysis, but it must be handled precisely. The Super Saiyan visually codes as blonde hair, blue eyes, blue or green eyes, lighter skin, sharpened facial structures. It is explicitly framed as purity of bloodline, inherited destiny, genetic superiority unlocked through suffering. The constellation cannot be read as neutral. Here's what we.
So, the reason why I'm making this video, because I need to start doing that, I guess. ChatGPT is like, you need to communicate why you're doing what you're doing so people won't get lost. So the reason why I'm recording this video is because there is a really strange disconnect in society when it comes to the idea of black and white and European and Caucasians, right? There's I used to have 4, but I gotta rework it, but I won't get into that anyway. I want to just try to stay focused. I love Dragon Ball Z. I don't think that any aspect of Dragon Ball, even Mr. Popo, I don't think there's any aspect of Dragon Ball Z that is inherently racist from the idea of a show that was created in Japan or wherever Funimation and Toei Toriyama is from. Japan, China, Asia. I should do more research. I'm not really that interested in that aspect of the things that are being done. So what I want to do is I want to focus on something real quick. What makes something as a color pigment black or dark? How do you define naturally and in nature the concept universally of the perception we have of something that is dark or black? Like my shadow. What makes my shadow dark? Why is my shadow the shadow behind me? Why is it dark? What makes it dark? Darkness is the absence of light, right? There is a void from my head to the wall. All this space right here has no light in it that's being emitted from the primary source. That light is actually shining through this, and that's what makes the shadow slightly lighter. How up to the stream. So as that light source passes through this space, this physical space that exists right here, as that light passes through this physical space, some of the darkness is filled with light. As this light, which is the primary source, passes through this, tries to pass through this space, it hits my face, it physically collides on my face, and it creates a shadow, right? So this is why there is a shadow. This is darkness. This is darkness. Darkness is the absence of light. Darkness is the absence of light. Okay? What makes something black? What makes something black? Why is this shadow slightly lighter than the wall? Why is the wall a certain shade and the shadow is a slightly darker shade? We already have established that darkness is the absence of black. We already established that darkness is the absence of light. So what needs to be understood about the idea of black is the pigment that absorbs light, right? When light is absorbed by something and then re-emitted by that thing, the color that we see is a reflection of the object that was interacted with, right? So the two light sources that I have in my apartment are interacting with each other and exchanging waves that are creating shadows that are a result of the light being reflected, right? If everyone looks up into space and they're like, space is black, space is not black. Space is full of light that is not reflecting off of anything. Optical nerves and visual cues are always the reflection of an object. We indirectly see everything as a reflection. That's the reason why when you look at the sun is a bright ball of white light because it is emitting light. It's emitting light, right? Light is coming out of the sun. It is not reflecting off of anything. Light is being generated by the sun. When you look at sparks and flames, hi, welcome to the stream. When you look at sparks and flames, it's the same thing. They are emitting light. As they emit light, it as they emit light, it emits with the color that it emanates from. Hi, welcome to the stream. So black as a pigment is what is reflected after light is absorbed, and shades and shadows, darkness, is the absence of light, right? These two things are important because we like to run around and use the word black. We like to run around and use the word white, but there are no black people on the planet and there are no white people on the planet because those color hues don't exist naturally inside of inside of our pigmentation, right? I walk the stream. Even polar bears are not white. There's other pigments and other colors inside of them that give them an actual hue that is not what we would define as actually white. Even paper isn't white. You can put sheets of paper next to each other and you can see that they all have different shades of perfectly reflective pigment. So, hi, welcome to the stream. So in that context, we have the idea of black and the idea of white. And the reason why I really wanted to do this because of the video with Dragon Ball Z is I never felt like Dragon Ball Z inherently was racist. I honestly believe that Frieza was like the archetype of pure evil to the point where he inherently was evil and genociding and like he's already murdered. The only thing that Frieza didn't do was rape, and that's probably just because we already got it. Like we understand enough that it wasn't necessary for them to add that one extra level of evil to his character. If you're murdering children, he literally directly in front of us showed. We got to see him firsthand kill Dende. We knew he wiped out all the Namekians, and there were Namekian children on the planet, but he death beamed Dende. Like we saw that. So Frieza inherently was evil, right? But I don't see the Frieza character as inherent. I don't see the Frieza character as embodying the idea of racism in Dragon Ball Z. And it's crazy to me all the time on the internet that we are perfectly comfortable with debating complex morals and ethics and legality inside of fiction, but we can't have that same conversation with each other in actual reality, right? So the idea that characters like Mr. Popo, what happens in society when it comes to culture is that a character like Mr. Popo being illustrated as inherently African, with an inherently African trait, it doesn't make it racist. It's the context that makes it racist. Some of the things that Europeans in America did when it came to certain types of imagery and portrayal of African Americans in our society, in American culture, in American society, when it comes to the idea of the black person, was inherently defined by and meant to perpetuate the idea of subhuman and inferior people, right? There are aspects of culture that were created by cultures that is culturally significant. And if you did any actual research about Kami and Kami's Lookout and Mr. Popo, and even the idea of Goku, Son Goku, as actually the Monkey King, you would realize that when Frieza said that Goku was a monkey, he wasn't saying that Goku was a monkey because black people are monkeys and he was associating Goku with black people. That's a you problem. He literally was saying that Goku was a monkey because the original actual artwork of Goku portrayed him as an actual monkey because Goku is inherently the embodiment of Son Goku, the Monkey King. And if you knew anything about actual culture and read anything about actual stories, you would know that. The power pole is the same weapons that the Monkey King used. The flying nimbus are the same types of symbolism and the mythology of Eastern philosophy that you see in their actual folk tales and their mythologies and their folklore. The Monkey King is inherently powerful. Powerful. This dude, the Monkey King is one of the most powerful characters ever written. And when you realize that Goku is the personification of the remastering of mythology from somebody that grew up in that culture, you get the idea of that. Like, it's really amazing. And I don't know enough about Mr. Popo's character to understand why he's inherently dark like that. But the symbolism of color in society is why racism came into being. It's not that Caucasians figured out that, hey, we could just call these people black, we could call ourselves white, and then we can create this institution. No, they understood color symbolism and how it has always been a thing in human culture and how we automatically instinctively recognize nature patterns in nature based on their color. We automatically associate green with life and red with danger and yellow with caution. Like, it's not that we decided let's make everything red, green, and yellow and program that into people. It's like those colors already have those internalized, inherited evolutionary cues in them anyway. So why not just use them in general? We'll use the green light. We'll use the color green for acceptance and entrance and go and passiveness, and we'll use red as caution and danger and stop and cause hesitation. We already know that. And we'll use yellow, which is super rare in nature, as curiosity, possibility, maybe, like it's always been that way. Every culture has these symbolism and these colors that they use to show and reflect aspects of society. And the idea of white and black is an inherently American thing. Like, it's not even that old. It's only the idea of white racism in the world is only a few, maybe even not 100 years old yet. Close. Let's say it started in the early 1930s. Let's say it goes back as far as like the 1890s. It's only about 150 years old as a actual ideological way of thinking and conceptualizing yourself. And the idea of the Aryan nation that Hitler pushed and all that stuff was based on the same level of, when you have a system of human trafficking that has become legalized in society, you need to okay, let's think about this for a second. Let's think about this for a second. Imagine a society of cows, right? We know cows are food, right? Imagine a society of cows that were governing other cows and they were selling each other to us as food so that we could eat them and then they could turn profit from it. And they were doing all of that, the work. The cows were actually the ones that were breeding themselves, forcing themselves to eat enough corn and get fat enough for slaughter. And one group of cows was in the business of trading other cows to humans for food in exchange to not be eaten and consumed themselves, right? So when you have this level of chaos, it behooves you as the cow to say that dairy cows, the ones with the white and the black spots, are the cows that are bred for human food, right? Because if you're a brown cow, you don't want to be ate and bred for food. If you're an Angus cow, you don't want Angus cows to be bred for food, right? So it just makes sense logically to say that the opposite features of the African were the features that were inherently European, were inherently human, because you have a system of institutional racism, institutional slavery taking place. People forget that when Germany, when Hitler and all that stuff was going on with the Holocaust, because everyone was always like, oh, the Holocaust victims had it so much worse than the Africans. Just because you have footage of what happened doesn't mean that it automatically is worse. People forget that the time frame for what was happening in Germany was very close to, there were probably still plantations that had African Americans on them actually being enforced slave labor. Like it probably was still happening, even though quote unquote they were free. There was still probably a lot of pocket institutions that were still forcing African Americans to be free slave labor. And the biggest conflict in America when it came to the idea of racism wasn't these people work for free. The biggest problem with racism in America was the inhumane treatment that the American colonists brought with them. The evil and the need to hurt and abuse and cause pain was the biggest inherent problem with society at that time. So so whenever you're watching like fiction and it's like, oh, racism, is it really racism or is it insert your classism here? Because Frieza was most of my telling has been heavily shaped by the Frieza character. And the one thing about Frieza's character that to me makes his character not racist was that he was pure evil. Like if you think about it, Frieza was just so powerful, so arrogant, so disrespectful, so full of himself because nobody could stop him that he did whatever he wanted to, and he didn't have to justify it. He wasn't running around. He destroyed the slave. I mean the slave. He destroyed the Saiyans because he was afraid of them, right? That's it. It wasn't like, oh, I think that they're superior to me. It's like, no, I'm gonna kill them now because even though I will always be stronger than them individually, there exists the possibility that the entire planet of them could possibly defeat me, right? Like if Frieza had to fight one Saiyan at any moment in time, his ego is like, I'm always going to be more powerful than one individual Saiyan. But the numbers, right? The Saiyans conquered the entire galaxy. I can conquer the entire galaxy. So power scaling, if I can conquer the entire galaxy and the Saiyans are conquering the entire galaxy, it is possible that in an all-out war between me and the Saiyans, they could potentially defeat me. They could potentially actually win an all-out attack against me. So let me eliminate them as a threat so that I don't have to ever deal with that as a possibility in the future, right? When Frieza called Goku and Vegeta and the Saiyan people in general as when he referred to them as monkeys, the statement is not inherently racist because calling somebody a monkey is racist. The statement was valid and true in universe with Frieza's character. The Saiyans were, by definition, actually primates. Like you see them transform into giant ape forms. We like to project into this fiction this idea like Frieza was the most racist, evil. No, he was just inherently evil, but his description of the Saiyans as accurate was fairly accurate to the fact that with their tails and with their transformations, they actually, in fact, did turn into and were giant apes. They themselves referred to themselves as giant apes. So it was said in an insulting way because he's saying that when you transform into a giant ape, that is your transcended form. My transcendent form is superior to your transcendent form, and all you are and all you ever will be is just a monkey. That's what Frieza's actually saying, but we project from our experiences in society onto that, right? Like, yeah, he's just automatically superior because he's white and he was just born with all this power and he never had to work for it. That's just us projecting. Tori Toriyama just wrote a character and he did a really good job writing a character and using elements of life in society to really build this structure into this story. Because um, every human culture has all of the same beats in our society. I just like to personally say that Europeans are held accountable for taking it to the next level. They're responsible for global institutional racism. So yeah, I can keep writing Raven. I think I did a very poor job of communicating my point. So yeah, that's it. There is darkness and there is black pigment. Something is black because it absorbs It absorbs light, and the light that is emitted is dimmed by the absorption. And then a shadow is darkness. It's the absence of light. So Caucasians are not white. They're just shades of human. There are shades of human pigment, and every African culture has all of the genetics that we have on Earth comes from the African. All of it is all of it, and the evolution of humanity is a part of all life on Earth. Everybody, we're all Earthlings, and everybody's Africans. And yeah, and the idea that we evolved from primates is not actually true or accurate. That's just the unfortunate consequence of science evolving during the age of racism and discrimination, and the need to justify human trafficking. If science would have evolved during the age of enlightenment, like when the philosophers sat down in Europe and were philosophizing about the nature of humanity and all that stuff, if they were also engaged in empirical thought at the same, because remember, philosophy predates empiricalism, and if it wasn't for philosophy, we would have never gotten to empiricalism. And by empiricalism, I mean empirical evidence, empirical data. So as philosophers were trying to grapple with these complex ideas strictly from a mental perception observation component without testability, if I perceive it in my mind and I see it in the world and I think that it's true, then it's true. Words having power, very childlike, adolescent way of thinking about of the world. If they would have never got that far and went beyond that, we would never have the science we have now today. But during that age, they decided, are we different? They asked the question, are we inherently different as Europeans from Africans? And they decided, yeah, I guess we are inherently different. We can see the differences that must make us different. We see the differences that must make us different. Like, is there, like, what is the argument about? What is the confusion? Why is there a confusion? Why is there a need to try to explain or go into a deeper meaning or a deeper understanding about the physical difference between someone that is African and someone that is European, someone that is Australian and someone that is Indonesian? Why is there a need? There's no need. There's no need. The thing that connects all humans is the fact that any two people of opposite genders, no matter where they are on the planet, can interbreed. When Europeans came to America, when they sailed from Europe across the Atlantic and landed in America and had their first child, that's when they should have said, okay, these people are human. They didn't want to do that. There was no profit to be made in that. And they had that Bible. So there was just like, I mean, just because we can breed with them, that doesn't mean that they're human. That was the philosophical mistake that was made at the time, and right now in the present we're still suffering for it. When a European male and an indigenous American female successfully produce a child, that child should have inherited the same ideological, egotistical, BS philosophical belief that they had in Europe. In America, the American people should have had those aspects extended to them across the entire nation. But if we do that, then we can't rape, murder, pillage, destroy, exploit, all the other fun stuff we want to do. So we would just say they're not really, even though they can have my children, they're not equal to me in any way, shape, or form, right? That's the part that we keep forgetting about. So. Like I said, I could rant and rave forever, but I got to get back to doing my homework. I have procrastinated enough. So as always, my name is Paul Emerson, and I've given you my 2 cents.